Welcome to episode 7 of Knowledge Labs. Thank you so much for joining us. And we have a wonderful, wonderful photographer, Talor Stone. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Doing very well indeed. Let's start off with, how are you holding up? How is everything on your end?
Everything is good. If anyone has followed along with my social media, you'll know that I am a PhD student on top of being a photographer, and Monday was the final part of my written exam. So I have a little bit of weight off my shoulders, but I'm still waiting to find out if I passed. Hopefully.
I was going to ask about that because I did see that story, and I wanted to see if you how you felt about it. Was it do you think you did okay? I hate that feeling. I hate exams.
I don't want to jinx it. I mean, it's always so stressful. Like at the end of the day, I know that I know the material. It's just whether or not I can translate that into
Put it down on paper.
Written exam. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What was the exam on?
So I study it's international relations, and it's basically these comprehensive exams that mark the midway point in a PhD program. So you start off the PhD program with coursework, and that usually takes 2 to 3 years. No. And then you hit comprehensive exams, which test you on a lot of theoretical concepts and foundational literature before you get the green light to start your dissertation. So they're making sure you know your stuff.
I have a master's in finance. The thought of doing a PhD in anything is insane. So I commend you immensely for having that dedication, because that's just way too much.
It's been stressful.
A lot of work.
A lot of people have asked, oh, well, your exams, are you done now? I'm like, oh no, this is halfway. I probably have 2 to 3 more years to go. So I'm in it for the long haul.
Oh, well, I wish you all the best. Please let us know how the results are. I'm sure you'll put it up on your social media. But enough. Let's talk about your photography. A wonderful photographer, landscape. You've traveled the world over. I've obviously looked at your work, and if for those that have not seen your work, I highly recommend that they go and check out your website. We'll make a link available for them to do that. But in a nutshell, for people that have no clue who you are and what you do, maybe give us a little spiel about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I already mentioned that I'm a PhD researcher, but I take that and I merge that with my photography. So a big part of what I do is I look at climate impacts on Indigenous cultures in my research. And I take that same lens when I'm approaching any type of photo projects that I'm working on. I'm always looking for ways to display the world that highlight climate-threatened environments and other environmental issues. So if you take just a really superficial look through my work, it's going to look like a lot of pretty pictures, but the underlying story between them you can find on some of the galleries on my website, where it talks about desertification or coastal erosion and some other issues that are related to what my passion is.
Yeah, and I noticed that just going through your work, obviously, it was really interesting because you can very quickly tell that it's not just about your photography. You've obviously got a bigger story to tell. You've got a few sentences to sort of describe the relationship between the ocean and glaciers, for example, and how climate is obviously affecting that. So it's interesting how you pepper that in to have that story in a written way, but then connecting it obviously through your work. So I thought that was quite a unique way of doing it.
Right. Yeah. For me, it's not just about taking pretty pictures. I mean, that's great and everything, but by highlighting these locations and all of their beauty, hopefully I'm able to convey that these places they're not just data points on some type of graph about environmental damage or climate change. Like, they're real places and they're beautiful. They deserve to be protected. And hopefully my images can give people a reason to want to save them.
I think what's really scary when you're talking about climate change is, you may go to Greenland and take this incredible picture of a glacier that's 50 stories high or however tall it is. And then that's so fragile that even in a few months' time, that may not even be there, or it may be massively reduced in terms of size, or it's already moved and whatever else. So it really is that fragile. What the photos that you're taking, along with, again, some of the places that you go to, are sort of moments in time. You may not even ever see them again. So it's photography from that perspective, to me, I find it really interesting. It's just a fleeting moment, and you're just able to capture something really stunning, and people can see that throughout your entire body of work. So let's talk a little bit about your some of the workshops that you do, because that's obviously one of the things that you love to do. You love to not only take photos and go to these wonderful places, but you love to take people with you. So maybe let's have a quick chat about how did you get into that? How did you,
Yeah.
making that leap to all of a sudden go from, I'm just going to travel the world on my own, maybe on, one or two people, to then taking on a whole different beast, which is doing these workshops, because that's no easy task.
Right. Yeah, it's a big pivot. And I have to tell you that I didn't have this like 5-year business plan that would take me in this direction. I did not. I mean, kudos to people who managed to pull that off, but I didn't. I was doing research, I was focusing on academic stuff, but I also was traveling a lot. And something about me being a huge academic nerd, I mean, education is clearly a passion for me. I like to educate other people. I like to bring people into the fold of what I'm working on. And then traveling with photography, I was constantly getting requests for people, oh, how do I come with you? Would you tell me all these tips for the location? And it just kind of coalesced on its own.
Yeah.
I was really fortunate to be embedded with a very vibrant, amazing photo community in Virginia when I got started. And so when I decided to launch my first workshop to Death Valley, I mean, it was immediately sold out. People just signed up. So I was fortunate, and it's because I had a really good foundation and support community around me. So now I have some of my own workshops, which are listed on my website, but I want people to know that I am making a transition. So at the end of 2022, and you can already see that I'm starting to work with them now, I am moving full-time to working with Munch Workshops, which is run by Mark Munch and his business partners. So I'm really excited about that.
That's really great. I wish you all the best with that. Quick question, I guess, how do you choose your locations? Obviously, we know the national parks here in the US very well as photographers, landscape photographers, but how do you then make the decision, I want to go to Botswana or I want to go to Iceland? Because I think, one of the things that you'll, especially this particular topic we're going to talk about, is doing it on a budget. And sometimes that is tough to do, especially when it comes to international travel. How do you choose those locations?
Yeah, well, so for me, choosing the locations that I want to go to has really connected to my academic curiosity about locations. So I really focus a lot on Arctic issues with my research. It's such a dynamic landscape. So I'm constantly finding myself pulled back there to explore some of these themes, like what's going on in these small coastal communities and how can I photograph them? But really, it just starts with curiosity. I try really hard not to be super driven by just chasing trends that you see online. Certain locations come in and out of vogue. And yeah, of course, I want to go to a lot of these places, and most of them I probably will and should go to at some point. But I think it really starts with genuine, heartfelt curiosity. Where do you actually want to go, and what does that trip mean to you, right? Because at the end of the day, a trip is not for anyone else. It's for yourself. It's personal. It's your own journey.
Yeah, and what exactly are you trying to capture? Are you going there specifically to capture one thing and then hoping to see what else is around left and right and that you may not even have known about? Or are you really one of those people that has a dedicated list of things that they really have to achieve? If I go to Greenland or Iceland, I have to hit the Northern Lights, the waterfalls, everything else, or do I just specifically want to focus on catching, I don't know, the Diamond Beach and the glaciers there?
Yeah, well, everyone has their different travel style, and that's something I'll talk about in this presentation, is that there's no one size fits all approach, right? You can be a checklist traveler, you can just totally freestyle it, and there's not really a right or wrong answer for it. But the same comes with budget travel, right? You can be very rigid. I mean, if you want to keep a spreadsheet to maintain a budget, or you can just kind of set guidelines for yourself. So I'll talk about different ways that you can make sure you're sticking within a budget and that you can choose the style that works for you.
Yeah, that sounds great. Do you want to kick it off? Let's see if we can.
Yeah. So I have a presentation built for everybody, but it is kind of like a free-flowing conversation. So Andrei, you're welcome to pop in. If you have questions as I'm going, please put them in the chat and we can discuss as I move. So I am going to share my screen. All right.
There we go. Perfect.
All right, hopefully everybody should be able to see that.
Yep, we can.
This is a picture from Iceland. Andrei, we were just talking about the West Fjords. So this
Yep.
is the West Fjords.
I recognize it.
Yes. So just a couple of things we're going to talk about in this presentation. It's really three main things, which is framing your mindset for budget travel, setting your budget, and then actually planning and executing your trip. So we already mentioned a little bit about myself. Thank you for that, Andrei. But just know that photography was my second career. I really started working in a government position, and I just made a huge pivot in my life and went the complete other direction into photography. And I'm so glad I did. I am also a PhD researcher, which I already nerded out about, and I won't bore you with that anymore. But the combination of photography and research makes me really passionate about educating and making sure that travel and photography is an inclusive space for other people. So, and all of this was made possible because I'm a pretty hardcore budget traveler, and you will get a taste of that here in a minute. So it's hard to take budget advice from a total stranger. I get it. And it's because not everyone else's situation is the same as your situation. So how do you know who to believe or where to get your information from? So a little bit about how I started. I truly started at the bottom. I started budget traveling when I was going through a divorce. I got stuck with a house and mortgage and bills that were twice my income. So you can suffice it to say, I mean, I was on a sinking ship. I was looking at taking stock at my life and saying, wow, this is not going to work out very well. I'm going under. So I had to make a really radical shift. And what I ended up doing is I rented out my house while I was on the market. I only took my most essential items and I moved into my Prius. Okay, I know that this.
That's extreme. Goodness me.
Yeah, you can say I was getting phone calls from my family asking if I was okay, and they were justified. But that's what I did.
So how long ago was this? How many years?
So that was the very January of 2017.
Oh goodness, I thought you were going to say like a few years before that. 2017.
No, yeah,
it's not too far away. Okay, all right.
Yeah, I had been traveling before, but this is when I really got serious about budget travel.
Yeah.
And it was out of necessity. I just had to. So I had to learn all these budget travel tips on my own, just totally to survive. And I'm so glad I did. What I thought was just going to be okay, well, here's my temporary fix so that I can sell my house and get into a better situation. Ended up being just a complete lifestyle. I actually never even got an address until the middle of 2020, when several months of COVID and my inability to free travel across the US, I reached my breaking point and I got an apartment. So wow. It's pretty new. And even now that I actually have a mailing address, I still am on the road. Now I'm picking back up again as travel restrictions are loosening, but by 2020, I'll be spending 8 to 9 months out of the year on the road again, which is my normal schedule.
That's a lot of travel. And most of it, can I assume, is, like you mentioned, it's in the US, not so much international, or is international sort of?
Yeah, well, so I do some international travel, but I do focus a lot on budget travel. And part of budget travel, we live in a huge country and there's just so much right here. If you want to be a serious budget traveler, it's a good idea to start right here at home. So I do a lot of traveling, mostly in the US. And part of building this budget travel lifestyle is that it's translated into my business model. I focus a lot on what I call the democratization of travel, which is really all about making travel accessible and affordable for everybody. So I do a lot of presentations like this. I've done similar presentations on this topic for REI on a regular basis and other organizations. And I focus a lot on offering affordable workshop experiences so that I can get anybody of any means in the outdoors and shooting. So, and that just is based in my own experience. I'm really grounded and rooted in what it takes to budget travel and making it possible for other people. So I love doing that.
Did you feel that with your whole craziness going on in your life at the time, you really felt the need to travel. For you, that was sort of an escape. It was, you kind of had to do it just to get away, no matter where you went, or was it sort of, I need to get away, but I'm going to go to Death Valley because I need to be on the desert sands on my own, looking at the moon.
You know, I think that was part of it. I did get a lot of criticism from family and friends when I started. You know, you get the classic, hey, you can't run away from your problems. But, you know, that was only a very small part of it. I wouldn't say that I never felt like I was running away from my problems. I was handling my business, right? Like I had a house, it was on the market, I was consolidating my debt, I was doing all of these things. But at the time I lived in Virginia, you know, the average rent there for a 1-bedroom apartment, we're talking $1,500 to $1,800 a month. And that's just rent. And we're not even talking in a nice area. It was literally cheaper for me to live on the road. So it was a strategic move, but it also suited my personal interests.
Understood. Yeah.
Yeah, so just getting serious about budget travel has opened up the world for me. I mean, I've gone places as far away as Greenland multiple times on serious budget, across the coast to California, seeing Mount Whitney and all these other amazing places. And right here close to home, which is Blue Ridge Mountains, they have a very special place in my heart because I've spent just countless months of my life exploring the Blue Ridge.
So let's talk about that really quickly, because I've seen obviously I follow you on social media, and I've seen some of your workshops that you're posting with people, and obviously taking them to these places that you know so well, and you're also exploring beforehand to see if there's a new waterfall or a new particular place to explore. Talk us through, let's say, going here that you know so well. How many people do you usually get on one of your workshops?
So, well, for the waterfalls, I limit it to 6 people, and that's because I'm really focused on people being safe, right? So getting down to some of these waterfalls, I mean, there's not, you know, stairs built in, right? So we're focused on safety and people being able to actually shoot. There's not a lot of room, and also preserving the environment there so we're not just trampling over it. Because particularly in the Blue Ridge Mountains, I take people to very off the beaten path locations often. And that's just because I've invested the time and the effort and energy to get out there and find some of these places. There's a quick plug there. If you're interested in finding some great waterfalls in the Blue Ridge Mountains, I have a free ebook on my website that's 26 Blue Ridge waterfalls that you probably haven't heard of. So you can just download it for free. It'll give you coordinates to all of them. And, you know, I just really like getting people out in these environments that I know quite well.
Well, these are really stunning. Let's before you move on to the next one, let's ask really quickly about your gear. And I know we're not going to spend a tremendous amount of time because we're doing about the budget, but obviously a photograph like this is obviously long exposure. Yes. I know that you work with Nisi. Is that still the case? So you use, I would imagine, ND filters for this. Maybe talk through really quickly about the gear that you use, the camera, the lenses, your setup for a shot like this one, for example, the ones.
Definitely. Yeah, so my absolute required gear that I have to have for shooting waterfalls is going to be a polarizer and a 6-stop ND filter. Yep. Although you can also use a 3-stop. It really depends on the situation, but those are like my standard kit. And I really love working with Nisi. They're an amazing company. The quality of the glass is just next level. And just their customer support team. I mean, it's rare that you find a brand that you're so excited to work with. So if you're thinking about getting filters, I highly recommend it. The thing that I try and tell all my clients, because they have to have these filters to go on the waterfall workshop, is that you may not know which brand to buy. There's a lot of them on the market, but it just doesn't make sense to go cheap because you've spent thousands of dollars on your camera and lens, and it makes no sense to go cheap on the one thing that goes between your camera and your picture. It's like the only barrier between the camera and the picture you want. So
no, but that's such good advice, because I think a lot of people, I think exactly to your point, especially some of the beginners that are getting into photography, they'll say, okay, I want to spend all the money on a good glass and a good camera, and then they don't really understand.
And then you go cheap on a tripod, and
yeah, you go exactly. You go cheap on a tripod or a really bad ball head, or like you said, that you don't get a polarizer or a very good one, and then you just wonder why your images aren't coming out as well as you see some of these ones, for example. So I think it's really important. And I think that's why you do in these workshops. I know you are teaching them exactly that every single bit of your gear is crucial to making an image like this work. It
100%.
all goes hand in hand.
And look, let me tell you, like, I'm the budget queen here, okay? Like, if I thought that you could go out and get amazing pictures with cheap filters or other cheap gear, I'd tell you, I promise I would give you that hack. But it's just not the case. You know, there's a huge difference in quality, and you are getting what you pay for. So sometimes it's just worth it.
Could not agree more. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but you know, I am a serious budget traveler, even though I might spend a good bit of money on my filters. But but the fact that I am a budget traveler, it allows me to put my resources into other places. So it has set me free, you know, to travel, to live as I want, to really invest my time and my resources in the things that actually matter for me, which are going to be my experiences with photography and my equipment to help me have those experiences. So this is my current setup. I no longer live in my Prius. Round of applause for that.
That's an upgrade.
Yeah. So this is my little teardrop trailer that my boyfriend helped me build. And so it is 6 feet by 4 feet, which I know is ridiculously tiny, but
all you need to do is sleep in it. That's all you need to do. All you need to do is sleep in it. As long as it's comfortable for sleeping, the rest of the time you're out shooting.
I'm focusing on the things that matter. And at the end of the night, I sleep just fine in my cozy little teardrop trailer. So, yeah, so it has my little QR code on the side. So I get lots of scans when I'm driving down the highway. It'll take people straight to my website so they can find out what the heck I'm doing in this tiny little thing.
That's awesome.
So now that we've just done some of the preliminary discussion about what I'm all about, so you get to know me, you can trust me, the advice that I'm giving, here's kind of what you can expect from the rest of the presentation. I'm not going to teach you how to travel hack your credit card for miles, okay? That's a whole different presentation. There's a lot of controversial information in that, and not all of the advice is good. So I'm not going to be talking about that. So I just want to set that expectation right off the bat. I'm not going to teach you how to fly around the world for free. This presentation is really about changing your expectations for what travel is, and giving you the tools to plan and set realistic goals. And ultimately, I hope that it's going to show you that travel really can be for everyone, right? You don't have to have a lot of money for travel. This is not an elite thing to be able to go do. Like, you can do this today. And I hope that I'm going to give you some of the tools to show you that. So just so you're aware, I have a lot of information on these slides. I normally try and avoid text on slides, but I want to give you all the resources you need. So there is a lot of text. You may want to grab a notepad and a pen, and you might want to take some screenshots during the presentation, because there are a lot of resources packed in here that you're probably going to want to take advantage of. So just, there's your heads up. So budget planning really is a cycle, and it comes in 3 parts and then goes back to the beginning. And the very first part of it is framing your mindset. And I'm going to break down each one of these pieces in detail. But framing your mindset is really about setting your expectations and asking yourself tough questions so that you can make a plan that makes sense for you. And then once that's done, you set a budget, and this includes how you actually save money or make more money for travel. And then all the tips you actually came here for, which is the planning your trip section, and we'll get into that. But the important thing is to understand that this isn't just linear, it is a cycle, right? So even when you get in the trip, there may be periods that you have to go back to the beginning and say, okay, let me reframe. What actually matters to me? What are my priorities? And you can reset your goals. And budget should be a cycle that you're continuously doing throughout a trip. So it's helpful to not think of this as just one direction, but it's actually a cycle that continues. And I see we have a question.
And for it to be fluid as well. I think, like, yes, exactly to your point, there might be something that might cost more than what you initially planned for whatever reason. You can't find hotels or whatever that may be. Being fluid with your budget and with your mindset, it's only going to make your trip continue to stay
Right.
of course.
Exactly. It is fluid and you have to be able to be flexible. So I'm going to break these down kind of bit by bit here for you. So the first is framing your mindset. Here I am in my booth.
Love it.
I'm just proving it, right? Here's my credentials. If you want to listen to a traveling hobo who lives in their car, here you are. You're in the right place. So framing your mindset, really what I want to stress to people is that you have to be ready to get uncomfortable, okay? You are not going to budget travel and still stay at the Hilton, all right? That's not real. We need to let go of this expectation. Sure, there's like all these travel hacks you can do, but I'm just trying to be the most realistic at the most basic level. You're going to have to make a couple of sacrifices, right? You're going to have to skip the first class. You're going to have to skip some things like dinner at a steakhouse every night. You're not staying at the Hilton. You have to be ready to reframe your mindset about travel so that you can get the most out of it and so that you can accomplish what you want to set out and do. It's important that every tip I give you here today is not going to fit your style. So I already talked about it's not a one size fit all, and that's okay, right? I'm going to give you a ton of information, and a lot of it might be so outside of your comfort zone that you're not going to be interested in that. And it's okay. These are tools, and you can take what you want and you can just leave the rest. So even if you pick up only one of the tools that I give you here today, it will help you. Another part of framing your mindset is asking yourself questions about what you're actually traveling for. Like, what's your goal here? You know, are you traveling for that restaurant dinner? Or are you traveling so that you can have that sunset over this place that you've wanted to see your whole life? Like, what are your priorities with travel? And get real with yourself about what your goal is. One thing that I have found to be helpful when I'm planning a trip and I'm trying to stay on a tight budget is that I will literally write down what is my number one goal? What is the thing that I want to get out of this trip? Maybe it's to see every sunrise, or maybe it's to have one epic hike, or to get to this one location that I've always wanted to see. And then when I'm making hard choices about my budget, I go back to that goal and I ask myself whether or not something I'm about to spend money on facilitates that goal. Because if it doesn't, you can ditch it. Yeah. So you just really need to know what your goal is and whether or not, you know, like what is a successful trip for you? What are you trying to get out of this experience? I saw a couple of things in the chat. Did anyone have any questions? Share plans on the teardrop. Yes, so on the teardrop, we bought the shell of it from someone who manufactured it themselves, and then we built out the inside. So I do have some videos. If you send me a message, I can send you lots of videos about what that looks like.
I think to your point, what a successful trip looks like to you, I think, again, going back to the planning is taking into account how long do you want to go away for? That's obviously crucial too, because if you want to go for just 3 days, then to your point, maybe you can afford a steakhouse. But if you want to go for 2 weeks and there's going to be hotels and fuel and whatever else, that's going to be a different thing. And then obviously, given the location that you're going to, are all the things that you want to see close by, are they really close together? Death Valley is a good example that they're not close by. You have to drive, you know, to get to Racetrack Playa is a trek. And then you have to go to Badwater is way the other direction. So it really, you have to do that planning ahead of time, again, to further strengthen what your mindset is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's important to take into account all of those factors. So one thing to remember when you're talking about mindset is that if you decide you want to go on a trip, it's okay for, you know, your first trip not to be somewhere halfway around the world. Okay, let's get real here. That's not attainable for a lot of people, and that's fine. You need to keep in mind that local travel is still travel. And if you're on a serious budget, local travel might be the most realistic thing for you to do. I guarantee you that today, right outside your door, there is somewhere you can go just for the afternoon or just for the weekend that is going to knock your socks off. There are amazing places right next to you. So it's okay for you to be a weekend warrior, right? You know, if you decide you want to travel more, it doesn't mean you have to go book a trip to Iceland. Right? There's so many amazing places right next to you. So it's important to focus on what actually matters. Is wanting to travel more, is that really about the location, or is it about the experience of finding something new or enriching your life? It might not be about that one particular destination. It might be about that experience. And when that's the case, understand that staying local is going to be always more affordable than going abroad.
And we have so many, more than ever now, we have so many resources to be able to find out what's local. Just going on Google and even just typing in what's around me, I'm sure you're going to be able to find stuff that you may not even be aware of.
Absolutely. You know, I mean, just get on Google Maps and look for the green spaces, right? I mean,
exactly.
they're literally marked on the map for you. These are parks, these are preserves, these are all kinds of green spaces near you that you can go experience. So it's okay to let yourself think local when it comes to budget travel. So now we're going to move into setting budget. So it's about understanding how much you have, how much you can make, and how much it costs, right? So there's really 3 parts. And really, budget travel starts with budget, right? It's literally in the name, budget travel. You have to have a budget. If you go straight to trying to save money, you're going to miss over some really important things that are going to help you stay in budget. And if you're not setting a budget, you're going to go over it. I mean, just period dot. If you do not have a hard budget, you're going to spend more than you intended. So how much disposable cash do you have? I'm a list person and I love Excel. So I'll come up with a spreadsheet and I will literally put together, you know, how much money do I have? How much disposable income do I make in a month? And how much can I afford to squirrel away? Whether it's $50 a month or $100 a month, it doesn't matter. All of it is working towards a goal. So it's important to just think, how much do you have to start and how much do you need? So a really good resource, particularly for international travel, is priceoftravel.com. There's a screenshot on the left-hand side. So Price of Travel is an amazing tool for giving you just average cost for most of the major cities internationally. So there's pretty much every country you can imagine and go to their major cities. And it's going to give you realistic, updated information about how much an average meal cost, how much different types of accommodation cost. It also gives you climate information to help you plan for like what you need to bring. It'll give you weather. It'll also provide you with what the high and low seasons are, so you can plan around that. So this is a really, really great resource. I have used it often when traveling internationally. Just keep in mind that this is a resource only, and pretty much nothing is going to do better than your own hard work going and finding these answers, but it's still useful. And it's important to always overestimate. You know, if it says a budget breakfast is $5.81, let's call it 8. You know, be realistic or go on the upper end of that range, just because you don't want to be caught out of pocket especially if you're international.
Absolutely, yeah.
Another really important thing to consider is fast versus slow travel. You may not have heard of this concept before, but if you haven't, you should. Fast travel is when you're like, okay, I have 1 week and I want to see every national park in Utah.
Yeah,
right?
That's not going to happen.
Right. I mean, you can do it. It's going to cost you.
You're not going to do much, and you're just be spending more time driving.
Yeah. And slow travel is, you know, I have 1 week and I only want to go to Bryce Canyon.
Yeah.
Right. So it's taking a slower pace. Slow travel is always going to be cheaper, always, because you're not burning fuel. You're not buying plane tickets. You're not trying to see all of Southeast Asia in a week. Okay. And it is going to allow you to slow down, buy groceries, cook your own meals, capitalize on affordable camping options and other things that make it affordable. So you will always come away with a richer experience with slow travel, but also a richer bank account. So it's important to just understand how far your budget goes. And if you want to go on a tight budget to an amazing place, then I recommend that you slow down a little bit with your travel. Don't try and pack it all into one. You know, those parks are still going to be there for a future trip, but you're going to end up with a way more enriching experience where you get to travel deeper in one place. Yeah,
that's a really important point. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, definitely. So, So setting your budget, having a dedicated travel account is my number one tool for setting my budget. I mean, like number one, right, is I have an account that is meant for travel. Anytime I have spare change, it goes into that. And I'm going to talk about how I do that in just a second here. So having a dedicated travel account, it's usually free or a negligible fee for you to just open up another checking account. You can usually do it right in your phone app, just open up a separate account and start squirreling away money. And that way you have something that you can watch grow and put towards like an actual goal. So some tips for saving is pay yourself. So if you have a regular paycheck, you're getting paid every 2 weeks, go ahead and commit or set up your bank account to automatically transfer, say 10% of your paycheck or a certain amount of money every single time you get paid. You don't even have to think about it. It just is automatically going into this travel account, right? It's transparent to you, and that's the most important thing, is that you do this without thinking, because otherwise saving can get really hard when you're having to, oh, but I want to, eat out tonight, so maybe I can't put that to the side. Just do it at the front end. It'll save you in the back. The next thing is to use an app. Before you even go download this app, I'm gonna just put a link in the chat here. So if you download it from that link, then you get a free $5. So Digit is my favorite money saving app. I think it's $4.99 a month. I save way more money using it. You get the first 30 days free, and I just gave you $5, so it's like 2 months for free. The way it works is it connects to your bank account. This is like an FDIC insured app. It's totally safe. And it will literally squirrel away a little bit of money every single day. I mean, sometimes it will take out 70 cents. Sometimes it'll take out $17, and you can set a floor on your bank account so it will never overdraft. So the coolest feature for it is you can set up a separate account inside of Digit, which is what you see here on the left in the image. This is not my money. This is like just one of their stock images, but you can set up a vacation. You can set a goal and put a time limit on that goal, and it will actually extract the appropriate amount of money to help you meet that goal by your end date, which is really, really cool. So the coolest thing about this is that it's totally transparent to you. It does it without asking you. So it will help you save as if it's just like sneaking it out of your account, which is awesome because you're not having to make any hard decisions. The app is just doing it for you. So another thing you can do is add a flexible source of income. When I first started out, I did this, oh man, I was all over this. The one that I've used the most with a lot of success is Uber and Lyft. So I would drive anytime. I mean, I'm not a bar goer. So on the weekends, if I was sitting at home, which I always was, or just hanging out, not doing anything busy, I would go make money. On average, you can make $20 to $25 an hour just driving. And plus I got to meet cool people. It was fun. And then what I primarily did is I flew a lot out of DC. So I would plan to go to DC 2 days before my flight. I would book myself a $20 a night hostel, and I would drive, because in a big city like DC, you can easily make $40 to $50 an hour. So I would make all the money I needed for that whole trip just the 2 days before I would actually get on a plane. So that's a really cool way that you can supplement your income, and you can set all of that income to go just directly into your travel account. So now we're getting into the fun stuff, which is planning the trip. So we're going to talk about a whole lot of cool tips of how you can save all these different what I call like buckets of travel expenses. So the first thing you need to know is that diligence and hard effort is almost always going to be more effective than quote unquote travel hacks. It is a myth that airfare is always cheaper on Tuesdays, or that, you should book your tickets 6 weeks before. These things may work out sometimes, but not always. So it's just most important that you actually do your due diligence. And if you want to travel on a budget, it can be hard work. There's a lot of planning that goes into it. So my number one piece of advice is going to be to become a member. I know that everyone hates getting spam in their email, but trust me, it's worth it. You need to sign up for the mailing lists and newsletters of things like airlines, hotels, any car rental companies, anything that's related to travel. You need to sign up for their newsletters, because I regularly get flash sale alerts from like JetBlue. And it's going to say, hey, for 24 hours only, there is a $30 flight to go to this location. And I often will take advantage of that. And it's a short, limited period of time. So actually being a member gives you access to these deals. So as you can see here, this is on the Frontier. I believe this is the Frontier website, where you can actually click on the best fare deals of the year, and you can literally buy a one-way ticket for 15 bucks. I mean, if these are your airports, why not get that one-way ticket? I mean, I'm pretty sure if you plan in advance, you can manage to get a day off on October 10th for $15 to go to Vegas. Okay. You can make it work. I believe in you. So
Vegas, yes.
Yeah, I mean, you get these great deals, so sign up for the mailing list. Honestly, it's so worth it. And I already mentioned I'm not going to teach credit card or travel hacking. So it's just important to know yourself. There are great ways to earn points using credit cards to put towards flights, but you really, really have to do your research on this to make sure that you're not hurting yourself in the long run. So like I mentioned, there are a couple major spending buckets that you can save in. So there are the four main categories. It's your transportation, which is your classic plane, train, and automobile. And you have accommodation. So there are paid and free options, meals, and then your major activities. So I'll talk about each one of these individually. So plane. The best way to save on flights is going to be flexible, because if you decide that you just have to go to San Juan, Puerto Rico on September 23rd of this year on a weekend or something, well, guess what? You are at the mercy of that airline. There is no flexibility for you to negotiate a better price or do anything to help yourself out. So if you want to get good deals, you need to be flexible. Think about planning a vacation just in a month instead of specific dates, and then let the day that you go be dictated by the prices of the airfare. So traveling off season, I mean, go to Iceland in winter instead of going in the middle of July, right? Yeah, right. Right. I mean, it's huge difference in airfare. I mean, just massive. I ended up not going, but I was looking at tickets to Svalbard, and they're very expensive in summer, but God, you could fly to Svalbard from Norway for like 200 bucks round trip in the winter. Yeah. I mean, I ended up not doing it, but I mean, look at off-season tickets. It's awesome. Non-holidays, I mean, forget about flying on a budget trip over Christmas. Okay, just let that idea go. It's not real. Yeah. Alternative locations, if it's really expensive for you to fly into Cancun, try going to another part of Mexico, right? I guarantee you the beach is just as beautiful and it could be a lot cheaper. Fly on weekdays. I usually find that like my airfare is significantly cheaper if I'm not traveling on a Friday or a Sunday usually. And just in general, be a rebel and don't follow like the, well, I want to travel on a weekend script. It's okay. Just change it up and let the airfare dictate what days you actually travel.
And just one point about what you were saying about being flexible, because I 100% agree on this. And you mentioned the concept of Iceland. You know, it all goes back to what you said previously about knowing what you want to do. Right. If I know that Iceland is going to be insane in the summertime and I can't afford to go in the summertime, then you make changes to your plan. I want to go to Iceland in the winter because I want to shoot the Northern Lights. Yeah. And I want to be able to experience whatever section of it that's probably better in the wintertime. And that's going to be my set list. That's my checkpoint. I'm not going to be able to do all the waterfalls because I won't be able to get to them, or it's too cold, or whatever it is. But you're flexible so you can still make it happen. And then maybe next year, right, you'll be able to do the summer one. So you don't have to do everything all at once. Just do what you feel comfortable within your budget.
Right, absolutely. And I look at a lot of shoulder season, which is like the right before or right after high season, because
Yeah.
you usually can get almost all the perks of high season in terms of weather and climate, but you're gonna ditch the crowds. You don't have the crazy expensive hotels and
Yeah.
all the cost of just being there. So it does help a lot if you're willing to do off-season travel.
And learn from each country is going to have its own off season. So the
Yes.
Maldives is going to have a different off season, obviously, than what Norway is going to have. So look to see, Google what the off season is. The off season
Definitely.
is for whatever country you're trying to get to.
Definitely. Well, and another thing is that the price of travel website that I mentioned earlier, they have the off seasons listed for all these destinations, and it'll also give you on and off season pricing for hotels and things
Yeah.
like that. So
Yeah,
that helps a
very
lot
cool.
to give you this like bird's eye view of how much it costs depending on the month.
Yeah.
Another thing with planes is just lose the perks. Okay. You know, it's okay for you to fly on a budget airline, except for Spirit right now, because apparently they're a dumpster fire. But in general, fly with a budget airline. They usually make all their money with bag fees. So just pack light. Okay. You can do laundry whenever you get there. You don't have to do it all. Like you don't need an outfit for every single day. It's okay. Let go of that. You can take the long way, except maybe a longer layover or an extra layover. Or I do a lot of red eye flights because they are so much cheaper. Plus, I can sleep while I'm on the plane. That's double dipping right there. I don't have to pay for accommodation. So be willing to take the longer way around. And one of my favorite hacks is getting to a hub on a commuter flight for a bigger flight. For example, I'm getting ready to go to Iceland. For me to fly from Pensacola, where I'm at, to Iceland was exorbitantly expensive because I'm flying from this tiny regional airport. But I know that many flights directly to Iceland go straight out of DC. So what I did is I just booked a cheap ticket from DC to Iceland that was, I mean, it was like a quarter of the cost. And then I found a $50 commuter ticket that goes from Pensacola to DC. So I just booked two different tickets. So a really good way to get around expensive transcontinental flights is to get yourself to a hub by using one of these cheap budget airline commuter flights that are, I mean, you can easily get them 50, 60 bucks.
Really quickly, I got a question on this because I know I've traveled a great deal in my time. And one of the things that I was always struggling with was knowing what to pack in terms of the equipment, my camera equipment.
Right.
So obviously I don't check it in. But at the same time, when I was younger and a little bit less experienced, I just felt like I had to pack everything, right? I had to bring 6 lenses and I had to bring this huge tripod and a drone and whatever else. And I really got stuck. It gave me anxiety when I was getting to airports because if they saw my bag that I wasn't checking in and I was trying to take it on, they would try and weigh it. I'd get into, oh goodness, I'd have to, in some of the smaller countries, you had to bribe them because otherwise they'll put it under and you'll never see it again. What advice do you have for people that are wanting to pack light, but still be able to get enough gear so they can capture what they're trying to do?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it just comes down to understanding what your subject is, where you're going. Like you don't need to bring all 7 of your lenses, okay?
Yeah.
Right. If you know you're going to shoot, you know, primarily wide landscapes, it's okay to leave that 500mm lens at home.
Mhm.
So do some logical thinking in advance about like what realistically gear-wise you actually need to accomplish your goal. And I think at the end of the day, it does come down somewhat to compromise and being willing to make some concessions while you're actually on the ground there. Like maybe I want to bring all my camera gear, and that doesn't leave me a lot of room for a lot of clothing or extra pair of shoes. So just be willing to make that compromise and say, that's fine, I can wash my clothes when I get there.
Yep.
Definitely. I already mentioned just signing up for like newsletters and things, but the same goes for airplanes. So make sure you're just flying, sign up as a frequent flyer. You know, you never know how you could use those miles, and make sure that you are part of the newsletters because that's where you're going to get these crazy flash sales. Airlines, a lot of people don't realize airlines do Black Friday, Cyber Monday, all kinds of Christmas sales. I mean, gosh, I'm pretty sure it's JetBlue that does penny fares. Oh, yes. And like you heard me right, it's penny fares. Like you actually are only paying taxes, and it only is for 24 hours. And it's this very short window that they do all the time during the holidays. Every single year I see this, and it's only certain routes, but I'm pretty sure for, a penny, you can get yourself on that
Yeah,
route and find a way to make it work.
I can make that work.
It's only one plane, and there's only like 100 seats on this plane. So you have to be on that newsletter, right? So if you're not a member of the club, you're not going to get the information when these big deals are happening. So just sign up, deal with the spam. It's totally worth it. Talking about where to look for flights, I consistently for years now always find that Skyscanner gives me consistently the best pricing. They search all major airlines globally and also all of the budget airlines here in the US. So I regularly will find the best deals through Skyscanner. And Google Flights is great for looking at map features. So if you can put in just a month that you want to travel and what your budget is, say that you live in Atlanta and you want to go on a trip in November, but you are open-minded about where you want to go, you just know that your plane ticket has to be $200. So you can literally put in all that information and it will give you a list of everywhere you could fly for that price point. So that's great for people who are focused on the experience of travel, not so much the destination. AirTrex is a very underutilized website for multi-destination travel. So especially if you are a photographer or a big traveler like I am, you often will not just be flying a round trip ticket from one place to another. You may be stringing multiple destinations along to build like a bigger itinerary. And AirTrex will help you do that because you can plug in multiple destinations and it will search all airlines to make sure that you're connecting in the right way to all of your destinations for the best price. So that is an awesome resource. And round the world tickets, that is something that is, people need to like not sleep on this because they can be amazing. So One World or Star Alliance, if you are going to 3 or more countries in a single trip, say for example, you want to go to Southeast Asia.
Exactly.
Well, I'm pretty sure you can put together 3 or more countries. And then instead of paying really expensive single tickets, you can book it all in a flexible itinerary. And there's many different ways to pay for it, but often paying by mile. It's so much cheaper. So someone actually did this. They wanted to go to some of the most expensive airports in the world: Fiji, Tahiti, Maldives, Borneo. Like these are $2,000+ tickets. I mean, these are very expensive plane tickets. So instead, what they did is built a round the world ticket for it and paid by the mile. And I think they only paid around $4,000 or so for the entire thing, which is like a third of the price that you would normally pay. So
I've done that.
I'm sorry.
I've done that for sure a few times, and it definitely saves you money, no question.
Yeah, and it's flexible too. You can change the ticket.
Yeah, exactly. That's the beauty of it. It's not just that it's cheaper, it's that it really gives you that flexibility to change.
Yeah. So people sleep on this. I don't know why. You should be doing round the world tickets.
I agree. If you're going for long.
If you're going on big trips, definitely. So just a caveat is that if you use a lot of these third-party sites, I use them to identify the ticket, but then I always go book direct with the airline because I want to make sure that my purchase is protected. And a lot of times, if you book through third-party sites, you lose a lot of the flexibility when it comes to making changes. So just FYI, especially during COVID times, this is something you should be thinking about.
Yeah.
Just a quick blurb on train. I don't do a lot on trains. It's really only useful in a couple of areas. It can be cheaper than flying, but if you're multiple people, it's usually more expensive than renting a car. And it really kind of can hamstring you once you get to your location, unless you're only staying in that city. So trains can be useful, but I'm not going to spend any more time on that. My favorite mode of transportation, though, is going to be car. because it gives you the maximum flexibility that you need as a photographer to be working at these crazy hours and get to these crazy locations during inconvenient times. So a car is definitely the way to do it. And it tends to be best for you to drive your own, but if you have to rent, again, make sure you're signing up to be a member. Companies like Enterprise and Hertz, you can create business accounts and get extra discounts there. And if you have airline miles, did you know that you can actually book your car rental using your airline miles if you go through that airline? So you can get a free car just using your miles. The coolest thing to me about renting cars is that usually there's free cancellation. So I check prices all the time. I literally have calendar reminders on my phone to go and check the prices for all my rental cars. And I do it every couple of weeks to see if I can get a better deal, because the prices of rental cars fluctuate hugely based on availability. I mean, like huge changes in price. So take advantage of that free cancellation. And I always try and double dip. So a car really can be your hotel on wheels. And you can, I promise you, get an affordable SUV, and the cost of that SUV and then packing a sleeping bag and staying in that is going to be way less than a hotel. So consider doing the hotel on wheels loop. Also, the U-Haul loophole, if you've followed me for a little bit, you will see that I just went to Alaska, and rental cars are very expensive in Alaska. So instead, we got a U-Haul for $19 a day. And if you are not doing a ton of miles, this could be way cheaper. I think we ended up spending like $350 or so for us to have this U-Haul for 5 days. And that includes the mileage and everything. So you just need to know how many miles you're trying to do. And you can see in this video, here's my U-Haul hotel. And we just threw a pad in the back, and there's our groceries. And honestly, it was so comfortable. It was awesome. I will 10 out of 10 do the U-Haul travel again. So it's like a little RV.
That's cool.
Yeah, honestly, how can you beat that price? It's great.
Yeah.
So for me, the biggest place to save money is going to be accommodation, and that just comes down to how much you're willing to sacrifice. So you can definitely save buku money when it comes to accommodations. Hotels, you can go cheap. You're just sleeping there, guys. It's okay. You know, you can go with a budget motel. It's going to be just fine, even in the morning when you wake up. So I use booking.com for the most part, because they almost always offer the ability to cancel anytime. Many other websites do too. But Booking, if you book enough reservations with them, they start offering you 10 to 20% off. They call it their genius discount. So I can usually get way better deals using that discount than just going directly through the hotel itself. And the fact that I can cancel anytime gives me the ability to keep shopping around and checking prices. And Hotwire is awesome. They have this thing called hot rates. So if you don't actually care what hotel you stay in and you're willing to get a mystery hotel in a certain area, it is usually, 30% cheaper, and they reveal your hotel to you later. But, this has been consistently awesome for me getting really good prices. Airbnbs, they can be good for large group travel, but I have found that they're way too expensive if you're traveling by yourself. And I hate having to work on someone else's schedule. So it's a give and take with Airbnbs. You can do it as an alternative, but often they're less convenient than just spending the extra money and getting the hotel. But when I get a hotel, I make sure I make it count. So here is me. I hand wash my laundry in the sink, and I even cook my food on my jet boil inside the hotel room.
My goodness.
Because if I'm paying, I'm going to make that money count.
You
that was in Greenland.
Definitely saving money there for sure.
Yeah, right. If I'm going to pay for that hotel, it's also going to be my laundromat, and I'm going to cook my own food there. Another option is hostels. People don't use this enough, honestly. They mostly are great in larger cities and in Europe, but you can find plenty of hostels right here in the US, especially if you're in like a larger populated area. And people don't realize that most hostels, many have private rooms or single gender dorm rooms. So you don't have to be crowded in with a ton of other people. Some of them have only one person, or you can pay a little bit more for a private room, and it's always going to be cheaper than a hotel. So this is a really good budget option, and you can kind of configure it to whatever you're comfortable with. And it gives you a place to cook, access to a fridge and a stove, and you can make friends. I always make friends at a hostel. So the only other thing with that is that if you are in a dorm room, you must be a good sleeper, because people do come and go periodically, but I've never had any issues. I've stayed in countless hostels and they've always been great experiences. And formal campsites, that can cost anywhere from $3 to $30. I mean, in national parks, they're super cheap. A lot of them are really affordable. And, you know, you can get access to showers, bathrooms. A lot of them have laundry, and you don't even have to have a tent if you're car camping. You can just pull the car right into that spot and have the security of being at an actual campsite and knowing that you're safe. So here are some websites for finding great campsites. Now, other forms of accommodation that are free, I always get questions about couch surfing. Andre, have you heard of couch surfing?
No.
Oh my God, it's the best. Okay. Okay, I get it. I
Wait, hang on,
understand.
Airbnb, but free? How does that make sense?
Oh yes, just trust me. Buckle up, guys. This is like the hidden weapon. I love couch surfing. I know that it may not be in everyone's comfort bubble, but just stay open-minded here. It is Airbnb, but free. Okay, so someone is welcoming you into their home and they are hosting you, the same as you do with Airbnb. And you may get a variety of accommodation options that is all negotiated before you show up. I would say half the time I get a private room. Sometimes it's literally a pull-out couch. Sometimes it's an air mattress. One time I slept in a bus in somebody's backyard. They had configured into like a place to sleep. It was so cool. But you know all that before you show up, right? So you can book something that's comfortable for you. It is completely free. There is no money changing hands at all. They are just generous, kind hosts. I would say 50% of the time I get a free meal out of it and a tour guide. So this is awesome, and it's nationwide. I mean, it's totally global. I've done this all over the world. I've done it in Peru, all over Central America, Cuba, Switzerland. I've done it across Iceland. So couch surfing is everywhere. Okay.
I
And
haven't heard of this. Now I need to look it up.
oh, it's amazing. So I think it's $25 to be verified, to have a verified account on there. And what that does is they take your driver's license and credit card information, and they make sure your picture and your address on your driver's license matches your credit card. They're checking your identity. And then you have a profile, and you just think about this like a dating profile, right? You know, honestly, it is, right? Because you're trying to find a match that works for you, that you feel comfortable with.
I love
So
it.
you upload pictures, you talk about yourself, and then you start searching for a host. And the host tells you all about, you know, this is what their house looks like. Here's pictures of where you're going to sleep, what they're willing to offer you.
It was very open.
It's awesome. And then you write blind reviews on each other. So I always stay with hosts that have lots of great reviews from other verified travelers. So this is safe, guys. Like, I know it sounds scary. It's not. It's no more scary than doing Airbnb. This is completely safe. I have done this hundreds of times. I've never had an issue, and I've met the most amazing people. Because just think about someone who's willing to let you welcome a stranger into their homes. Generally, they're really open-minded and amazing people. And I've had amazing experiences. So another thing that you can do if you're not ready to fully commit to this is that you can sign up and just be a host. So you can put, maybe you have a couch or a spare room or something, and you're willing to host somebody. Just dip your toe in the water and see if you like it. When I lived in Virginia for years, I was a host, and I've hosted so many interesting people from all over the world. And I loved that, especially being close to DC. I was often the first time someone came to America, and I got to be the face that greeted them, and I got to make sure that these people had a great experience and that I welcomed them into my country, right? And could provide this awesome experience for them where they were safe and cared for. So it's awesome to be a host. I highly, highly, highly recommend it. And once you get to be a host for a while, you get lots of references, and then it's very easy to find someone to host you. So it's all about just paying it forward. It's a great community.
It's awesome.
Yes. So couch surfing, can't say it enough. Dispersed camping, I do this all the time. So the map at the bottom, that's public land, guys. Okay, like you can go camp on this for free. So you can find BLM and National Forest maps on these links, and also crowd surfing using resources like iOverlander and freecampsites.net to find completely free, totally legal places for you to go camp. Just before you do it, make sure you do some research about what the rules are. It's usually 200 feet from a paved road, and you have to pack in and out your trash, which you should be doing that anyway.
Exactly.
Right? Like this
not much
should
in Texas. Texas is pretty bare over there.
Yeah. Just go west, guys. Okay.
Exactly.
Look at Nevada. I think Nevada, I want to say it's close to 90% of the state of Nevada is.
I mean, Utah, Wyoming looks pretty amazing too. Idaho.
These are the most beautiful places in our whole country.
New Mexico's got a good chunk. Arizona. Yeah. West is killing it.
There's not a flushing toilet at your campsite, but I think you can survive one night. Okay.
Exactly.
Just think about the view when you wake up in the morning.
Yeah. As photographers, if that's, landscape photographers, that's what's really crucial. Being able to be close to where you want to shoot, and you get sunrise.
Yeah, it comes back to what your priorities are, right? Exactly. If you're there to shoot, if you are there for that wild experience with our beautiful country, well, guess what? Dispersed camping is for you. Yeah. So I have woken up at some of the most incredible places, like the North Rim of the Grand Canyon. I mean, almost all of it is national forest. That's all free legal camping until you cross that park boundary. And guess what? The view from that national forest is exactly the same as the view in the park. Okay. I've woken up on the rim of the Grand Canyon for free. All right. This is a thing. You should be doing this. Here's one of my dispersed camping sites in Greenland. So I got to be right at the face of a glacier and listen to the crumbling of the ice all day and night. It was amazing. And that's completely free. And car camping, I do this often. It can be really safe to car camp. People freak out about this. I promise you, it's perfectly safe as long as you do your due diligence. I do it a lot at Walmarts where you are allowed to do it. There are security cameras and 24-hour access to bathrooms. Hospitals, same thing. They have on-site security, cameras, 24-hour access to the lobby. You have Wi-Fi too. Truck stops, I use Loves all the time because, again, they have 24-hour security, well-lit parking lots, access 24 hours inside. So car camping can be really safe and totally free and get you all the comfy amenities that you could possibly want, which includes a flushing toilet. So you just need to be smart about it. I never do like side of the highway rest stops, right? There's just not enough security, but be smart, go to some of these places. It's completely safe and it's free. So this is a picture of me and my best girlfriend, both of us car camping in the Prius. Nice. So it was a little tight, but we made it work. So a good thing to do with meals is just skip the restaurant, right? Go grocery shopping. It's part of the cultural experience, right? Especially if you're in a foreign country, and just cook for yourself. It's easy, it's straightforward. A peanut butter and jelly isn't going to kill you. If you're in a foreign country, try and go eat where the locals eat. I did this a lot in Cuba, because if you're in the tourist district in Havana, I mean, it's very expensive to have a sit-down restaurant meal. I mean, like
yes, it is.
It's way more than in the US. But if you just walk a block down the street, you can buy a sandwich out of somebody's window for like $0.25.
And
So
it's more authentic. It's like that's where
yeah.
the locals go. I mean, I'll go to a restaurant in the country that I'm in just to sort of say that I've done it, but the majority of the time, I'd rather turn left, not knowing what's out there and
Oh
seeing
yeah.
where these people eat, because I want
Ask
to
a
feel the
local.
place. I want to feel the country.
Ask a local. In Cuba, I could have gone to the cafe on the corner, but I was far more intrigued by the abuela sitting on her concrete scoop who had a
Exactly.
thermos and a shot glass and was giving out shots of espresso, which you took the shot and gave the glass back. I mean, it was like we were all sharing this cup. But that was way more interesting. It totally enriched my experience
And
compared
that's
to
the
doing
stuff,
it.
and that's the stuff you're going to remember years down
Oh,
the road. That little thing is going to be one of the things you'll probably remember the most about Cuba, because
I
it's
never would
different.
have remembered that cup of coffee that I paid $4 for, but I
Exactly.
totally remember her.
Absolutely. Yeah, I absolutely agree on that one. Eat.
Yes,
Always ask, what's the local beer? What's the local food?
yes,
What is special about that particular region? What should I be trying? I mean, that's the whole
always.
point. That's the whole point of traveling, right? You want to be able to experience someone else's hometown and culture and people and way of life. So
Yeah,
don't be
it's so
scared to
much
ask.
more fun. Another tip is just forget the booze unless you're in Tuscany, get that glass of wine, okay? But it's just an easy way to save money if you can ditch that beer or that glass of wine if you're going to go out to a restaurant dinner. But I always try and find a balance. As you can see, I'm enjoying a Truly with my friends. So
Yeah,
just find the balance. But if you are trying to save money, that's a really easy thing that's not necessary that you can cut out. So
but just buy it at the supermarket. No, don't buy it at the restaurant.
yes, don't go to Vegas and buy booze at a casino, okay? Go to the liquor store
Exactly.
like the rest of us degenerates. So just remember for your activities that it is okay to have fun. If you're going on a budget trip, that doesn't mean austerity. You don't have to be miserable on this trip. Live a little. Just make sure you're budgeting for the big items. So like in the top picture, I have never seen a killer whale. I mean, which is a shame for someone who says they're an Arctic specialist, that I haven't seen an orca. And I wanted to see an orca so badly that when I went to Alaska, I made sure I had room in my budget that I could go on that whale watching cruise. I wanted to do that. So make sure that you are planning for those big things that you just know you want to do. As long as you plan in advance, you can make room for it. But it's okay to leave room to improvise. That's why I always over budget. So when I was in Switzerland, I was on a serious budget. I was car camping, but I still managed to, when I saw someone jump off the cliff in Lauterbrunnen, I
I was
decided
going to
I
say
had to do it.
that looks like Brunnen.
Yes, I had to do it. And I had left room in my budget and I knew that I could afford to do this. So make sure you're giving yourself room to improvise. And look at that smile. I clearly don't regret it. I
My
regret nothing.
parents
We're-
live about 2 hours away from Lauterbrunnen, so every time I go and see them, I always go out to. It's such a wonderful place. I
I
love it.
mean, yeah, you got to leave room to improvise. Here are just a cluster of other pro tips from living life on the road. First one is Planet Fitness gives you a free day pass to try out any gym, and they have showers and you can work out. So all you have to do when you're on the road, this is the biggest fitness chain all over the US. So just get that free day pass, just sign up online. If you don't want to do Planet Fitness or it's not an option, most gym passes are only $5 for you to go get a shower. You can also get showers at public pools, which every community has pretty much. And truck stops, they're really, really cheap. And I have found them to be amazingly clean. So perfectly safe, very clean options. Laundry, I always pack light so I don't have to pay for an extra bag. And then I just hand wash or use a laundromat. Gas stations, great places to get some freebies like napkins and condiments to spice up that food that you cooked for yourself, hopefully. And I get lots of free Wi-Fi from Starbucks, Walmart, and McDonald's. All of them always have Wi-Fi, and Starbucks doesn't turn it off even at night. So I will just park outside of a Starbucks and get on their Wi-Fi even when they're not open. And another thing is just forget the souvenir, guys. Like your family already loves you. You don't have to bring every person in your life back a present. Okay, just let go of that. When I first started budget traveling, I set expectations with my family. I said, hey, I am budget traveling. I am not doing souvenirs. I love you. I'll send you a picture. Okay, so just just let go. You don't need an item from every place you go. I take my pictures, maybe I'll grab a postcard, and that's it.
And they're expensive.
Yeah, they're so expensive. And 9 times out of 10, they're made in China. Okay, let's be honest. I've seen the same souvenir in every single like Latin American country, the exact same one. They're all from, I mean, they're most of the time, they're not even made there. So just be realistic.
Very true.
Another thing you can do is join a group, right, to help disperse the cost of it. So just buddy up with your friends, join a local club. There's lots of options. And sometimes workshops or retreats can actually be cheaper than going by yourself somewhere. The very first time I went to Greenland, I did go on a workshop, and that's because I knew that I wanted to be on the water a lot to get the photos I wanted, and it was going to be cheaper for me to join a workshop and pay for a workshop than it was for me to pay $500 an hour by myself to charter a boat. So sometimes doing these group events is actually cheaper. So just wrapping up, the bottom line is that travel is really affordable. It can be. You just have to reframe your mindset to be willing to sacrifice a little bit and give up some of your creature comforts for a richer experience. It's important that you set your budget and maintain it, and planning diligently is always going to yield better results than just trying to go for some type of travel hack. And I've given you a ton of tools, but I know that not all of them are going to fit everybody. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution, but if you even just take one of these tips and apply it, you're going to be able to travel more cheaply than you were before. So you just have to find what fits your lifestyle. And don't forget to leave room for fun. It's what you're doing this for anyway.
Exactly. And experiences, yeah.
Yes. So I just want to open it up for questions. I realize I went over a little bit, but in case people have some questions, we can go over that. Oh, there's a lot in the chat.
I think you answered a great deal of them throughout your presentation. I think everything that I wanted to ask you definitely came up. Looks like we've got one coming up here. Do you have any safety concerns when traveling with expensive equipment in hostels?
Yeah, so almost all hostels offer lockers. So if you know you're going to stay at a hostel, I recommend just getting a lock, because they come with lockers, but not locks. You have to have one. So I pretty much will do that.
Yep.
Or I just don't leave it in the hostel. You know, that's another thing.
Yeah, just be smart about it. I'll keep your eye on it. Be aware of where it is. What's the cheapest trip you've ever done? That's a tough question because it depends on so many factors.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay, I can tell you the one I'm most proud of.
No, that might be a better one. Yeah.
So I used to have a blog. I had a blog on my old website, but I took it down because I just was too lazy to blog regularly. And it did this whole breakdown of this particular trip. So in 2018, I drove from DC all the way to Utah. I think it was close to 6,000 miles round trip over the course of 5 weeks. And I only spent $498, and that included my fuel.
How is that possible?
It's possible.
Because you were in a Prius.
I was in a Prius. But I didn't spend any money other than fuel. I think over $400 of it was fuel, because I bought one margarita. You have to live a little. But honestly, like, I spent money on fuel. I slept in my car. I packed my groceries ahead of time in my vehicle, and I stayed with that plan. I had a national parks pass. I didn't have to pay any entry, right? And so I was able to do that trip so cheap. I was so proud of myself. I even kept a spreadsheet to track my expenses.
Well, that's another point as well with the national parks pass. I don't know if they've put the prices up. Last time I remember it was $120 for the year, and that gets you in all the national parks. So that is a fantastic, because otherwise it's, you know, if you're seeing 3 or 4 of them, that's gonna cover it right there and then. And if you, like you said, if you go to Utah where there's 4 or 5 right there,
I mean, that's more than the pass.
Exactly.
I'm fortunate because as a veteran, I'm able to get it for free. But if you plan on going to more than 2 or 3 national parks in a whole year, you should just get the pass.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I have that pass. I renew it every single year, even when I don't have a planned trip, just because it makes so much sense. And not only that, but I want to support, you know, the National Park Service and all that. But it just makes sense. It's just a great thing to have. It's always in my wallet.
Yeah, I see one question in the chat that I want to talk about that is awesome, which is talking about the climate impacts of travel. God, that is like Oh, I have
That's
stayed up.
another presentation that we need for that one.
Yes, I've stayed up at night, like stressing about my carbon footprint, because honestly, I know it's an issue. I know it is. I make sure that I'm not frivolously traveling. I try and be efficient with it, but at the end of the day, I have to get on that plane. And one of the things you can do if you want a carbon offset is you can research a reputable organization, which, believe me, they're way harder to find than you think. Here in the US, there's conservation. Oh gosh, I'm blanking out on the name. It's conservation.org or something. And you can actually earmark a donation for a particular location in the US, which is awesome. So like if I go to Death Valley, I can earmark money that specifically goes to that location. So I know I'm contributing to the area that I'm going to. But at the end of the day, my justification is that change for climate has to come from larger organizations and from government policies. I recognize how small my drop in the bucket is, and that's not to absolve me of responsibility, but it makes me more passionate about being an activist and actually changing things with my vote versus having to upend my whole lifestyle.
Yeah, I do agree. There's a lot of countries that can be doing a lot more, and just human greed and corruption is what's been holding us back for so long, and it's continuing to do that. So hopefully that's going to lead to change before it's too late. Let's see. Oh, $80 for national parks.
Someone, that's good. Thank you, Peter.
Peter just upgraded his. Wow, I remember it being 120. I wonder why they're going down. But still, again, it's a great thing to have, and you're supporting the National Park Service. So that's.
I mean, I think if there's only one takeaway you get from this is like, what are you traveling for?
Right.
Like, think about it and make sure that the choices you're making financially fit your actual goal, right? If you're traveling because you want to experience the world, then be a part of the world. Don't isolate yourself from that world by going to a nice restaurant, staying at a fancy hotel. I mean, those are all things that take you away from your goal. They don't contribute towards it.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate. I've traveled the world over. I think for me, I have a bucket list. And every time I check one or two off, I always add another 5 or 6. So my bucket list, I'm sure yours is as well. It's constantly growing. I've been fascinated by, which in some ways you haven't touched on yet, because this is more about the US and some of the more known international places. I'm fascinated by going to places that very few people have gone to. Mm-hmm. For me, one of my bucket lists was to see the jumpers of Vanuatu. Vanuatu is hard to get to. You know, it will cost some money to be able to do that. But then everything that you're saying, in terms of staying in hostels, in terms of how you're spending your money on food, in terms of your travel within the island, it all contributes to it. So even if you're not taking an entire picture, there's so many things that you've brought up that can be applied domestically as well as internationally, regardless of where you go. Even if you go to Singapore is the most expensive city in the world. There's still things that you can do to reduce your costs, staying in a place such as that one. So,
I mean, Greenland, I go to Greenland for research and photography. I've been fortunate to go there a number of times. I'm obsessed with Greenland. It's my favorite place.
I've been once and I loved it. I didn't go to Nook, but I went to
next level. Like, guys, you have to go to Greenland. But the plane ticket, right? I mean, like, this is not a trivial financial commitment to get yourself to Greenland. Yeah. And if you think you're going to stay in a hotel when you're there, I mean, we're talking like an exponentially expensive trip. Like, I go to Greenland, but I'm a budget traveler. I buy that plane ticket and then I go to the local grocery store and I sleep in a tent, because dispersed camping is legal in the entire country of Greenland everywhere. And guess what? If I sleep in a tent, I can sleep at the face of that calving glacier and enjoy it at a level that people who are staying in a hotel are never going to be able to experience. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's hands down so much richer of an experience to be able to do that. But I just have to throw something in here. Don't go on a cruise. Okay, don't do that.
That's another topic we don't have time to discuss, but I 100% agree.
I mean, okay, so I've written a paper for my PhD program. I'm not sure why my camera just lost focus, but I wrote a paper in my PhD program about the impact of cruises in Arctic indigenous communities. Guys, don't do this. Like, it is horrible. Actually physically go, put in the time and effort, and actually like invest yourself in that community. Make sure your money is going to this community. It's so important.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Well, we could talk about this for another. Oh yeah, your focus is.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened.
It's locked. Your focus is locked. I just want. I guess we're gonna have to wrap it up, guys. This has been jam-packed with information. We are going to make this available if anyone wants to watch this again with all the wonderful details that you provided. And may I assume that if anyone has any questions, they can reach out to you with any further updates or anything else that you can come out with, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Look, guys, the photography community is way more welcoming than you think it is. Okay. Just email me, DM me. I will answer. I am there to help you do whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. So I'm a resource.
And everyone at F-Stop as well as myself, same thing. If you have questions or anything, please do not hesitate to reach out. That's how we all progress forward as a community. Talor, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I know you're incredibly busy, and good luck with the rest of your exams and everything else that you're doing, and keep us up to date. We'll love to have you back when you have some cool trips finished.
Yeah, maybe I can present some nerdy research one day.
Yes, I would love that. I am actually fascinated by that. I think that'll be great. So I would love to see that. Thank you so much for your time, guys.
Bye, guys.
Till next time, we'll see you for the next Knowledge Labs.